Welcome to the Creative Agency Success Show, the go-to resource for agency owners looking to scale their business. Join us every week to stay ahead of the curve and position your agency for future success.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jody's least favorite podcast of the year because all of our productivity is sitting in this one room right here. So I'm sure Jody is freaking out right now because the firm is getting nothing done and no billable hours. But we're really excited to sit down and bring our whole crew here and have a conversation about what 2024 was in the world of podcasting. So welcome to the show, everybody. Excited for a great conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to start off with congratulating Indiana University for their win over Notre Dame today, which is the Friday, the game that they're going to have today. I know it's televised in January, and you'll already have the second opportunity to see Notre Dame play live this weekend, hopefully, if depending upon when it is. So, congratulations congratulations Indiana on their big victory.
No,
Jody's
online gambling
manifesting early on here.
Yeah. Online gambling is legal in Indiana, right?
Online gambling is legal. Yes, it is.
So how much money do you have on that game? If it doesn't happen, are you coming back in January? Or are you gonna?
I'm going to be very wealthy. Just saying, when IU wins.
Predicting the future.
So if he had said no to that question, would you still ask him how much money
I will be back because I'll have to work. Yes.
We all know Jody's gambling habits. I want to start this episode off by introducing some of our behind-the-scenes people. So we usually we don't have this big of a crew on, but I wanted to start with Christine. Christine has been a huge help for us over the past year. So Christine was very excited to have her camera on for this episode. So we're excited to have her here, and welcome to the show, Christine.
Oh my gosh, I still don't know what to say. Thank you for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. For the first time in almost 4 years, huh?
Exactly.
On camera.
4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question we have to ask you is, and I'm going to put you on the spot, which is your favorite podcast of our podcast?
Oh.
There's a right answer.
Oh.
The new babies
Great
are the cutest,
question.
right?
Please don't do this to me.
I'll answer for you. Tom and Adam.
Wrong
Okay.
answer.
I think I do have a favorite, and it's the young CPA because
Yes.
Because,
Thank you.
wait, hold on. I don't have a kid, and I don't know how to not have favorites, but the young CPA kind of resonates a lot with me being just 18, you know? It's like the very natural choice for me to pick because as a college student, I just feel like it just really hits all the right buttons. Like it is exactly what I need to hear as a college student. Wink, wink.
So how's your grandson doing, Christine?
Oh my gosh, no. My
I knew
dad's
that was
gonna
going to be
see
the
this.
answer. Or I did know that Jody and I weren't going to be the answer because we're probably the least responsive and the hardest to schedule. So I knew we were not going to be the answer because it's like getting us two in the same room is pretty difficult. So I knew we were not going to be the answer.
Oh, no, it was actually easy. Honestly, I would give it up to Roxanne for scheduling everything through the end of the year. And it made it a lot easier for me. But now I am just so happy to actually introduce one of our newest addition to the team who's going to be working with us closely and who's going to be handling this rockstar shows. Like, I'd like to introduce you to Minna. Minna, say hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
It's nice to be here.
All right, Minna, so why don't you tell everybody about your background and the role you're going to be playing in the podcast going forward?
Sure. So I, for the last 4 years, I was working in agricultural tech in a startup incubator. And before that, I was in politics. And now I'm on podcasts, which feels a little bit like a winding road of a career. But we're figuring it out.
So I'm going to ask you the question.
Little did you know, Mina, that our podcast ranked number 4 in the nation for all accounting firms.
Oh, nice.
Did you just make that up?
No, I did not.
I saw that.
I'll have to fact check that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had to fact check it with at least somebody else in the room.
I think Mina knew it. I think that's why she applied to work with us. I think that's the real reason she's here. She's like, oh, number 4 CPA, a podcast. How could I not work with them?
She came from the world of agriculture tech. Of course, the cannabis podcast is a natural extension of that.
Very simple.
I might have exaggerated. It's definitely in the United States, but maybe not the world. Number 4 in the United States. So,
okay, there we go. Now that you're fact checking.
There's a recent article I had wrote. No, actually read.
I mean, I'm going to ask you a question that we're going to ask everybody later, but since you're new to the program, what is your podcasting New Year's resolution for all of us in 2025?
So I guess my resolution is just to make sure that we keep up scheduling, the same as Roxanne did. I know that she really got ahead of the ball on a lot of it, so I'd love to schedule out a couple of months in advance to make sure I have all of you where you're supposed to be.
That's not an easy challenge, so I can understand that being a resolution and a tough one to keep. So I'm sure Roxanne flagged Jody and I, as I already mentioned, as
that's what I was going to say.
the tough
That one
ones.
was pointed at you, Jody. That's what that was.
Hey.
Gonna have a lot of travels. Make sure you book in advance.
Once he loses that Indiana bet, he'll be working a lot more. So he might be doing more. He's like, oh, I need to sell 3 times as much.
This already happened.
Oh, sorry.
I won.
My bad. All right, so what I want to do is just go quickly kind of around the room and everybody talk about some of their either favorite moments, favorite guests from their podcasts. And I want to start with Brett because like you said, you're kind of the baby podcast, the newer podcast of the group. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your podcast and kind of some of the success you had this year? And just again, what was your favorite moment?
Yeah, so obviously I'm co-host or host of the Cannabis Access Show, and it is a new podcast this year. We had a lot of guests on, and they were all really good. I couldn't pick a favorite for sure, but probably one of my takeaways is just the education that I got. That I learned there are some very, very smart people in the cannabis space. And PhDs in medical bioscience, just some of the people that you meet doing this is incredible. And just sitting down and listening to those folks is fascinating. You could just sit down and talk to them, and you get a wild education in the world of cannabis. And it's much more than just, the cliches of the world, right? It is truly a plant that people are cultivating and farming for medical purposes, for medicinal uses, and it's just incredible to listen to some of those folks. That was kind of my big takeaway. I walked into it. I've been in the cannabis space for a long time, but the stigmas are still there, unfortunately, and but when you start talking to some of these CEOs and owners of these companies, it's incredible the amount of work that they're doing.
Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate you being on that show because I think a lot of us, at least I know I would have some imposter syndrome if I was on all these like geniuses on my podcast episodes. So I appreciate you sparring with all these smart people and asking great questions. I have listened to a couple episodes and you do a great job with the guests. So
appreciate that. Thank you.
I have the best voice on this whole thing, just so you know. You have a voice for podcasting.
Yeah, I have a face for podcasting too, as well.
Exactly. That was my indirect comment.
Or a face for radio, I guess. I guess podcasts you still see.
Yeah.
We all saw Christine thinking that same thought. She's just not she's polite to say it.
Hey, and shout out to Christine, right? Because I went to the MJ BizCon in Vegas, and she pulled together some last minute things for me that if I hadn't had her there, kind of working behind the scenes to assist us, that would not have been the success that it was. So thank you, Christine, for all of the work that you do. I could not have done that without you. So.
Thank
100%.
you. Thanks, Stu, for being very communicative and responsive. And I really, really appreciate it when we were working together. It was really fun having all those live updates.
Yeah. Yeah, we're like texting back and forth like, hey, did you get this? Hey, did you get that?
I know. You get it? Is it already arrived? Has it arrived? Or
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great team there. All right, so now let's move over to Hannah, whose partner's not here today. So we're gonna let Hannah. So it's gonna be a much better show, I think, without Joey interrupting Hannah all the time. So Hannah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your episodes and what your favorite memories were?
Yes, I actually had to go look back at the published episode list because unlike Jamie and Jody, our podcast is scheduled out for a while. We've recorded a lot of episodes. So I had to go look and see like which ones have actually published this year so I can direct y'all that way. But looking back at the list, I think my favorite episode was with Jesse Rubenfeld and Tom Zettner. They were with Phenalytics, and they are just some really cool dudes. Jesse worked for LimeWire, and Jody probably doesn't even know what LimeWire is at this point. But Christine knows. I can see the look on her face. She knows what LimeWire is.
Let me Google it just a second.
Yeah.
LimeWire was the source of everything.
It was. It's all the legal work CDs I ever had.
The new Napster.
It was like Napster, right? Is that what it was?
Yes.
A Napster.
Yes, it was. And I like until that conversation, I had just not even thought of LimeWire in years. So it was just a really cool walk down memory lane. And they're doing some really cool things in the accounting space, specifically around AI and innovation, which is really cool, and obviously some buzzwords that we're hearing in the industry. So it was really neat to hear from them and what they're doing and what their vision is. So there's also lots of more episodes coming of really great conversations that I can't wait for y'all to hear in 2025.
Awesome. Great. Tom, why don't you tell your story about Joey and Hannah that you had from DCPA a couple weeks ago? You were telling me that and I was cracking up. So
yeah, so early December, Jody, Jamie, and I, and some others from our firm went to the DCPA conference. So Digital CPA, it's an AI CPA conference that's put on every year in December. So like lots of conferences, for 2 of the days, it was a lot of breakout sessions. So we went from the main session to a breakout. So it's probably, 500 people kind of moving. And as I'm walking, there was a woman who looked over and she said, "I love your podcast." And I was thinking the Modern CPA Success Show that Adam and I host. And so my ego got really big. I'm like, great, I didn't expect to get noticed. And then she went on to tell me all the things that Joey and Hannah talk about that are just so great. And I'm sitting there. Then I'm thinking, did you see my name tag? And then you like associate the podcast because you said nothing about my podcast. So that's when my ego balloon and then promptly popped that same balloon. There. So good credit to them. But yes.
And to be fair, like when we look at our downloads, Tom is always the highest. Tom and Adam's podcast always has the highest, but I do think that Joey and Hannah have the chance of catching them, because I do think there's a lot of people that resonate with okay, I'm early in my CPA career. I'm curious what it's going to be like. I know I was there, and again, this was millions of years ago, but when I first came out, I was like, hey, what do I expect? So I think that the audience is going to be bigger for that podcast, and I do think it's going to grow.
I think you're right. Yeah, and it should. It's also very good.
Brett, sorry, I cut you off there. What were you saying?
No. I was just keep Tom humble, but also the younger audience. I mean, who's downloading podcasts these days. Like I don't know who.
You mean versus just listening to them?
Yeah, just listening to it.
I download podcasts.
Yeah, well, you're old. That's why.
Okay,
Not as old as Christine, but you're old.
I don't trust my phone that it's gonna like be in service when I'm driving. That's
same. I do the same thing.
Yeah. So. All right, so let's move to Tom again, partnerless Tom. So Adam's not here again. I think we're in this podcast will be a little shorter because Adam's not here. So we're excited with that news because we know Adam can go on his rants. But Tom, why don't you talk about your highlights from your podcast?
Yeah, one of the ones I thought of, and it was 2 different guests, and one of them you guys have had on. So storytelling was one of the topics that came up that I found really interesting. So we had Jeff Barch, and then we also had Sufyan Hamid from Brussels came in, and both of them talked a lot about storytelling. But from Jeff Barch, and I've also worked with Jeff Barch directly and done some things. He's just a great storyteller, got some really good insight. But one of the things I learned from him that's really helped me is, I had heard this before, but he connected it. The hero's journey. So if you think of big movies, Star Wars, things like that, the hero's journey is the character wants something, they overcome obstacles to get it, and they transform as a result. And so we talked through that, but where I think that can apply very much is we used to have a HR consultant who would say, hey, you guys, the CFOs, the advisors, you're not the heroes. Your client is the hero. You're their guide. So thinking of that, and for many of our clients, they are on that kind of thing. They've got something that they want for their business to be successful. There are obstacles. In some cases, they personally or their company overcome those obstacles. So I love the ability to, can we do storytelling and how we explain results so it's not just numbers, but then also thinking of them kind of being on that journey. And if we have the ability to make our clients feel like heroes, I mean, that's just a complete home run. So for me, that was very impactful. I've thought about a lot, and kind of the way we present things. I think it gets us really sticky with our clients. And I know others, Jamie, I think I met Jeff after he was on your podcast also. So you guys have had that connection as well.
Yeah, no, Jeff's a great guest, and we've used him within the firm actually to help train some of our CFOs and get people in that storytelling mindset, because it's really consulting's all about being able to have those conversations with our clients and not be boring as accountants. So having Jeff part of our team for a while there really helped.
Yeah, I agree. And just even at this conference, I do it. Someone's like, well, let me tell you a quick story. And suddenly, like, you're sitting up more and like, okay, I want to listen because I don't want to hear you spout more facts. I want to hear a story kind of thing. So I think the more we can try to do that kind of thing, it's really impactful.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Jody, let's move on to our podcast. So your partner is here, but I'm gonna let you do some of the talking, and then I'll talk about my favorite moments that you didn't mention. But what was your favorite moments for the year, for the podcast you were actually on?
Jamie. I was going to say my favorite time is just be able to spend, an hour with you on the podcast. I don't get a whole lot of time during the week or during the month to do that. And I always look forward to hanging out with you and inviting somebody into our office. And that's kind of how you always begin, hey, we're actually in the office, just chatting. And that's kind of how I look at it. Just the three of us. And we've had so many great guests over the years. It's really hard to just narrow or ping one down as being the best. But just the fact that you are hanging out for the week or for the day, is my favorite part of the show itself. One thing I would like to note, though, is that for everybody out there, it seems like this last fourth quarter has been pretty phenomenal with everything, in revenue and sales and new clients, and I have many different places, many different groups and organizations, from construction to you name it, trucking, whatever. And they're all reporting really solid fourth quarter and pipeline looking really strong. And so for all those folks out there that were struggling maybe in the first three quarters of the year, it's looking pretty bright for a lot of you folks. And those are just some of the things that we kind of glean from listening to different speakers when they come in and talk about stuff. And it's just one of many things that you kind of get out of listening to different podcasts and meeting in groups versus just simply being a silo within your own company. And so love podcasts, love doing them. And I think, at least I hope our audience gets a lot out of it.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate the compliment, but I enjoy hanging out with you as well. Like you said, unfortunately, we don't get to talk during the week as much as we used to, but it's nice to have that time with a third guest. And like we always say, we want our meetings to be a free-flowing conversation, and just like the three of us are in a office talking, and I do think we capture that. And a couple of my memories, I was kind of looking back at our podcast list. Definitely one of them was very early in the year talking to Jay Owen. And I just remember him talking about his dinner club he does, and so that's something I'm trying to start with a couple of my friends here, and it's been really tough. But I do think like his perspective on life and his perspective on business was really refreshing. And obviously, you and I are friends with Jay, but just listening to him on the podcast was a fun one. And then the other memory I had was I got to ask a question to a guest I've always been curious about. So we had Zaid Amari on, and he was talking about like click marketing, and I was like, can you explain to me how my phone can pick up when I'm talking about toilet paper, that I instantly go onto my phone and there's toilet paper ads? And he didn't know the answer, but he had a lot of guesses on it, and I thought that was fun for me to be able to ask about, is Alexa actually listening to me? And those are my two memories from the year that I picked out. Cool. So let's get to the next question. So we're going to do a double question here. So for anyone that listens to our podcast, everybody knows we end our podcast with a fun question. So we're going to do a combo of fun question here with the New Year's podcast resolution. So that's the first question you have to answer: is what is your resolution for next year in podcasting? And then the fun question is going to be, what's the first item on your Christmas list? Since this is a New Year's kind of pre-Christmas podcast, and so we're going to go in reverse order this time, and so we're going to start with you, Jody. So podcasting resolution, as well as what's on your Christmas list.
Yeah, podcasting resolution. I like Tom had mentioned, it's super common for us to go into a conference and speak, and somebody reach out and say, hey, I love that podcast that you're on, or I listen to you all the time, and that really is something that's pretty cool, and we really enjoy when people come up and talk to us, and so my resolution on that is to for every conference that we go to, at least hear, one or two people, come up to us and talk to us about a podcast that we've been on, or maybe wanting to be on a podcast in the near future, is really what my resolution would be regarding podcasting. Regarding gifts, I'm not a super big gift receiver. I enjoy giving gifts to everybody. It's kind of weird, but I don't enjoy getting them. So I'm going to be the Grinch when it comes to getting gifts. Not really a good gift receiver, but like I said, I love giving gifts to everybody, and from and gifts that they, not just to give them a gift, but gifts that they can remember over time, year over year, something that maybe stick. And most of the gifts that I like giving are really not physical, but they're more experience type gifts.
I think many people on this podcast have experienced those gifts and know that he is not lying, that Jody is his love language is definitely in that realm. So we all appreciate that, Jody. All right, so Tom, your turn. What's your resolution, and what's on your Christmas list?
Let's see. So resolutions, I always think of New Year's resolutions being like every single day I'm going to, and then people stop doing them. So in the spirit of that, Jamie, every single day I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do a podcast workout.
Oh,
It's going
wow.
to be research, questions, voice drills. I have a feeling I'll do it one day and then I will quit that resolution. Sorry for my cynicism for
I love it.
resolutions. Yeah. But if I think of what I'm really excited about this year with the podcast, I think of two different areas I'd love to explore. I use the term advisory oracles. So, who are people that really inspire you around connections with clients, the storytelling, the things that you're like, this is the kind of thing we're supposed to be doing, and picking up tips on how to do that and sharing that with our audience. And then would also love to talk more about how artificial intelligence is truly transforming things. I think AI is doing great things. It was a big topic at this DCPA conference, and lots of times it's little like one-off stories, like I can't believe that was a cool thing they did. I'd love to have more substantive conversations about how are people actually using it to transform what we're doing.
Cool.
So that's on the resolution side. Christmas gift, right behind me, my wife gave it to me early. I got a piano keyboard. I played piano until I was in about 6th grade and contests, and actually got pretty good, and then haven't played at all. And so it's been 3 or 4 years of, I think I'd like to play again. And so she finally called me on it and said, then let me get you a piano and let's see you actually do this. And so I started finding some online lessons and starting again. But I look forward to learning how to read music again and starting to play, and I think I'll really enjoy that.
One of our coworkers sings on a Christmas album, so I look forward to your piano Christmas album soon.
There you go. Yes. Am I going to walk into a future happy hour in St. Louis and suddenly there's a grand piano there? Like, okay, show what you learned this year, and I'll be maybe embarrassed.
Joe, did you write that down so you remember that we can
write it down as we speak?
Okay.
There we go. Yes.
I'm excited to see Tom play.
Yeah, I can't wait in Vegas.
Oh yes, not too far away. All right, Hannah, you're up.
Okay, so podcast resolution, I would say I've gotten feedback from people on the podcast that it's refreshing and that we're just fun. And that really was what we set out to be whenever we started the podcast, was just, we wanted people to listen to us and be like, I really want to go work with Hannah and Joey. Like they sound like fun people. They're fun accountants and they're not boring. And that was really it was awesome to hear the feedback that we accomplished that goal, really, of just creating that vibe and that community. I've had so many people connect with me on LinkedIn that have found us through the podcast. And so I think for 2025, I really just want to continue that spirit, because I think there's still a lot of room to grow within that space and make a lot of waves, especially shaping and bringing people into this space as well, and letting them know it's not as intimidating as maybe it has in the past been painted to be. So that is really part of my goal for 25. Let's see, gifts. So a little bit of story that's somewhat connected to the podcast. So in 2022, No, 2023. My best friend passed away from cancer, and that was the year that we had started the podcast. And so this was such a light for me with that experience of just something positive that I could look forward to. But I also, through part of watching her suffer, I made a resolution for myself that year that I was going to get healthy. Like I was going to get in shape. I was really going to start working out. And so that started in 2023. For 2024, I made a goal to lose 50 pounds. And I did it. And so I'm just so excited. So to keep on that track, because I do a lot of workouts, I asked my husband for 20-pound weights because like I've incrementally done like weight training, and now I'm up. My 15s are feeling a little too light. So now I need 20s. So also pertains to just that personal resolution that I want to continue on to 2025. That is just a continued importance and priority for me. So yeah, I'm asking for 20-pound weights for Christmas.
That's cool.
That is an awesome story, and it's definitely I've appreciate you sharing that with everybody, because that's awesome. Kind of to Tom's point about New Year's resolutions, when it comes to health, that's a tough one to keep, and obviously you've been keeping it for a long period of time. So congrats to you.
Thanks.
All right, Brett, you're up. Man, so I was thinking while you guys were talking, the big topic, you know.
You were doing two things at one time?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Cool.
It's a first for me. Don't tell my wife I can do that, because then
I won't. Believe me. We'll get together on that.
No, the big topic in cannabis is 280E, right? These companies are essentially handcuffed by that. It kills cash flow. Some of these companies have 70% tax rates on their operations and stuff, and it's incredibly difficult to maintain a business with that level of regulation on it. So I think every single episode in 2024, we talked about 280E in some capacity, some form or fashion. I do not want to talk about it in 2025. I am manifesting the rescheduling of cannabis for 2025. So hopefully that goes through. It gives some of these companies some relief on their cash flow, and we can actually have some more fun discussions, you know, of how they're spending their money instead of giving it all to the government. So I think that would be a fun thing.
Brett,
as far as gifts go,
before you stop talking about it, can you give a 15-second definition for those who might not know what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So 280E it's a reference to the regulation, just like, you know, every single reference to an IRS statute is the statute itself, right? So 280E references cannabis or plant touching companies cannot deduct normal business expenses, administrative, that are not cost of goods sold. So you can deduct your workers that are touching plants, the labor that is used to produce those products. You can deduct, all the materials that you buy that go into producing all of those products, but your rent for your building can't deduct it. Your office supplies that you buy, the paper and the printer, you can't deduct it. And so, as you can imagine, normally for a company, your gross margin after you deduct your cost of goods sold is like 50%, right? So there's not a lot of expenses typically that go into cost of goods sold. The bulk of your expenses come on the administrative side and the operations side. So it really hurts them from that perspective, where they can't deduct all of those normal business expenses that other businesses get to deduct. And so they get taxed on gross profit, which is huge. It's a big number. So it really hurts those companies. It really hurts cannabis touching companies because it's a Schedule 1 drug. That's why it applies. They're talking about rescheduling it to a Schedule 3 drug. There is discussion of descheduling. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to stay on the list in some form or fashion. Schedule 3 is probably the best bet. And if it does, then 280E goes away. There's still some, they're not subject to 280 anyways. There's still some nuances with that, but at least they would not be subject to 280. So does that help?
It does.
Good
Yeah,
synopsis?
Yeah,
And
they get
resolution
clobbered.
there.
They get clobbered for sure.
They do, absolutely. As far as gifts go, I'm in the same vein as Jody. I really don't like getting gifts. Christmas morning to me is very uncomfortable because I'm sitting there having to open presents in front of people. It's not my thing. I love giving gifts. I love seeing my kids open gifts. That's just me. I'm the same way.
I love
So
you.
for
I
me,
love you, Brett.
yeah, you were talking. I'm like, Jody and I we're vibing right now.
Oh, I had to make a fake face just so they're like, oh, didn't you like it? It's like, oh, I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So some of my favorite gifts are just things that my kids give me, right? The little mementos, handmade things, things that I know that as a kid, they spent a lot of time, they put a lot of effort into it, and they really are excited to give it to you. That's what gets me
Oh, for
excited
sure.
on the gifts. So, like last year, I actually took my daughter shopping for my wife. We were going out Christmas shopping, and we saw. So my favorite Christmas movie is Charlie Brown Christmas, and there was a Charlie Brown Christmas game at one of the stores, and I pointed it out. She remembered what it was, the store that it was in, and went back and told my wife and said, we have to go get this for daddy. We have to go get it. And so that was probably
That's awesome.
the fact that she remembered it. I mean, she was 5 years old, right? The fact that she
Cute.
remembered what it was, remembered the store, and was like, daddy loves this. We have to go get it for him. That was probably one of my favorite gifts. But yeah,
that's great.
I'm not a big gift guy. That's all.
Cool. That's good. That's a good answer. All right, Christine, you're up.
Okay, for the resolution, at least for all of our podcasts, I would want to do my best to support Minna with any questions she has so that we can continue to make our podcast a lot better, and continue to have more downloads and exceed our results from this year. So that is my podcasting resolution. For my personal podcasting resolution, I actually get really easily distracted if the podcast is longer than 30 minutes. So I would try to make an effort to listen to podcasts while I am doing something that doesn't need thinking so that I could focus on the message of the podcast. So that is like me personally listening as like an audience. And then so one thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned about Christmas movies, Brett, and I just wanted to ask if you already watched Carry On from Netflix.
I did. I watched it. Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah. So I think that's my new favorite Christmas movie. That's not a question, but I just wanted to say it was good, and maybe you should watch it. My favorite Christmas gift. Well, my husband and I are weird. We tell each other what we want so that we don't make mistakes. So we already bought each other what we want. But my favorite gift from him, I would say, is that he surprised me on a Sunday and we went to Krispy Kreme. So there's only one Krispy Kreme branch here in British Columbia, and it's like a 20-minute drive from our place. And he's like, hey, you want to get coffee and donuts? I'm like, where? Krispy Kreme. I'm like, we traveled for a little bit just to get my donuts, and I'm so happy. So yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, very, very thoughtful, and yeah, who doesn't love a good Krispy? Especially when they're hot, right? And hot and ready. Like everybody loves a Krispy Kreme donut. All right, Minna. So you already gave us your resolution, but I would love to hear your Christmas list for the year.
So I think my my best Christmas gift for the year is a little boring. I asked for a blender for Christmas because my food processor is about the size of a small mason jar, and I really like making soup, so I asked for a blender.
So did you go Ninja, Vitamix, or like which brand did you get?
It's a Ninja blender.
Ninja.
Oh, I have that one. It's good. That's a good ask.
Yeah,
very good.
Oh. Yep, it is very good. I have the same brand.
What's your favorite soup recipe?
I really like potato soup, with like a lot of garlic. So very hard when your little KitchenAid chopper is barely enough to fit a potato in.
Yeah, that's tough.
Mhm.
All right, so at the next retreat, Tom is playing piano and Minna is making soup for everybody. So I'm getting excited for this retreat now. This is
First of all, Tom's going to be in Costa Rica at the next retreat. I may or may not be salty about this. So Tom will be playing the piano in Costa Rica.
Oh,
That's
oh
I've
yeah,
already got
I
a
had to
gig
bring
booked.
that up. Sorry, Hannah.
Yes. There's that.
We all have to
Jamie, let's
sacrifice.
hear it.
I'm willing. Jamie, how about yours?
All right, so my podcasting resolution is to be better at follow-up, right? So all the speaking events we go to, and I meet some really interesting people. And while I'm talking to those people, one of the first thought that pops in my mind is I'd love to have this person on the podcast. Because to me, that's what makes our podcast. Yeah, I love having Jody and I in the room, but it's even more fun when we have an awesome guest. And it's like, oh, I'm watching the clock and we're at 40 minutes already. I gotta turn this thing off, and so that's the type of guest that I love. And so I've had those conversations with so many people where I'm like, oh, I'd love to have this person on the podcast. And then of course you fly home, you get on the flight, you get back to work, and you forget, oh, I got to follow up with that person and get them on our podcast. And so that is my resolution, is to keep getting awesome guests that are fun to talk to, and people, especially people that I've met and had great conversations with, because that's some pretty clear vetting that if you've already been at a bar with them and talked for 4 hours, like, okay, I know this person's going to do great on our podcast. So that's my resolution. And my gift. So if you heard the background of this podcast, it was not me. I promise. My background noise was not me, because we are planning on getting a puppy. We don't have one yet, but so this is the year my kids like band together and didn't give us a Christmas list and just said all we want is a dog. We want a new dog. Our existing dog is 8, so she's an amazing dog and a great dog. And they're like, Blossom would do all the training for us. We don't even have to worry about training the dog because our existing dog will do it. I'm like, that's not exactly how it works, but yeah, we are considering getting a new dog for the family. So
nice.
Yeah.
Jamie, one thing I like about your resolution, it sounds like you are constantly thinking when you're talking to people about would they be good podcast guests.
Yeah.
And I like that. I've been in that frame sometimes and maybe not as often as I should. So I really like that kind of meeting people, talking to people, and constantly thinking of would they be a good guest on a show. Yeah,
definitely. Cool. Well, I thought this was a fun episode. It was great having all of us in one room. We may have to do this again next year. And actually, we've had large podcasts before, but usually I'm so competitive during them because I'm trying to win some type of draft that I don't get to focus on the people. So this was fun to actually have a podcast with all these people and just sit back and talk. So I appreciate all you guys coming down and adding your insight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Why you?
Enjoy this podcast? Visit our website, summitcpa.net, to get more tips and strategy for achieving business success. We're here to be a resource in this ever-changing industry.